Cool. Jake Heller, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your time to talk about Casetext. Maybe jump in, tell us about yourself, your business, your product, and so everybody understands what Casetext is all about.
Yeah, happy to, Chad. So nice to see everybody virtually, I guess, or I hope it's good to be able to talk. So my name is Jake. I am the co-founder and CEO of Casetext. And before this, I was a litigator. And that's true of a lot of the folks at my company. And before I was a litigator, I was a computer engineer, which is also true of a lot of the folks in my company. And what Casetext is, in essence, is a combination of some of the best lawyers, some of the best engineers working to create technology to make lawyers' lives easier. And that technology includes legal research software that we believe is better and it's also cheaper than Westlaw and LexisNexis. And it includes some new things they're working on that help folks do things like write a brief in 75% less time, but still with higher quality than they would before, or help search much more effectively and efficiently through both the case law, but also their own documents than they ever have been able to before. So that's what we do. That's us.
Nice. So lots of questions that presents. So let's start with this. You mentioned the concept that you're not just legal research, but right. So, but you started off primarily as a legal research product, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned Lexis and West, as primary competitors. I assume also like Fastcase and, well, I would say Casemaker, but that's not a thing anymore. So, Fastcase. So tell us about like the transition from legal research only to other products. What does that all include?
So from the outside, it definitely looks like a transition, and we're happy to talk about those new products in a second. I think the interesting thing for us is that from day one, we've had a mission has been bigger than legal research. Our mission internally is to help make lawyers so effective and so efficient that it helps promote justice and quality service for clients that is still at a lower cost. And so our ambition from day one has always been, how do we situate lawyers in a way that they can work effectively and efficiently, and put them in a position to better serve their clients. And we decided to start with legal research because it's something that, as young associates, for a lot of us who started the company, Laura, Pablo, and I are co-founders, all of us big law associates, we'd spend 30% plus of our time doing legal research. It's something that was a really big time draw. It's something that our clients stopped paying us for, and stopped paying us for. And so we saw it as like an immediate opportunity to make the world more efficient. And maybe the last reason why is we saw the advent of artificial intelligence technology and natural language processing, then kind of like in its early stages, not really doing much good, but their promise as something that could take that really time intensive but critical process and make it much faster. And so we started with legal research. And Casetext Research, our kind of core flagship product, it's available at casetext.com, is doing pretty well, right? We have 7,500 customers, or law firms that are customers. And that's everything from a 5 or 10 person law firm all the way up to around 50 of the MLaw 200 who are using us to conduct research. And so that's where we started. More recently, what we've noticed is, folks who are doing research, their needs are broader than just finding that case, just finding that statute. And if we could help them do even more, we would better fulfill our mission, right? So we noticed, for example, that we came out with a product called Compose. The idea behind Compose is to give you a comprehensive list of every single argument one might make in a particular brief, and to make finding the standards of law, like the 3-part tests, the burden of proof, et cetera, the kind of stuff you usually research for, is easy as saying, I'm interested in adding this argument to my brief. Here's the standard of law, add it into my brief with one click, and along with a case citation that is valid and recent, et cetera. And the reason we came out with that product is we realized that before people doing legal research, they're trying to get smart on an area of law. And so we wanted to give them that kind of bird's eye comprehensive view, like a table of contents like view of every single argument you might make. And we wanted to give them a ability to cut out some of the wasted steps with research by giving them just the standard of law, the 3-part test, the burden of proof, whatever it is, along with a case citation that they can, with one click, add right into a Word document or into a draft of a brief. And we launched that product right the early pandemic in 2020, which is an interesting time to launch a product, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Literally a week or two before all the lockdowns, right? We were in Legal Tech New York giving a presentation on it. And so far that product's been doing really well, but also along the way, you know, we've launched other things too. One of the other kind of big examples from 2020, and this is more core to our legal research mission, but it's going to be built out from here, is a tool that based on this most recent advancements in artificial intelligence and natural language processing, that really understands language at a very specific level. And so you're able to, for example, just type in a sentence of what you hope to find support for in the case law, and it immediately finds something that means the same thing, even if you don't use the same words as the judge, right? So it understands what you mean, finds a case that supports what you're saying, and brings back the right answer, you know, using your own language and typing in your own, no longer like, you know, Jake within 5 words of Chad.
Right.
Yeah. None of that stuff. You just write like a regular old sentence, and it knows what you mean and finds the answer. This tool called Parallel Search has been, you know, it's interesting. It originally was a feature within Compose. It was so successful and so popular that Compose, we broke it out to its own thing, and it's really taken off. And the next step, that's not actually public yet, in kind of tying together many more aspects of what lawyers do, is, so we have this really powerful search technology, Parallel Search, based on this advancement in artificial intelligence and natural language processing. Instead of just searching over the law, we have a product now in beta. So it's currently being used by some of our kind of closest and earliest clients, but it's going to be released sometime in 2021 for sure. And what enables anybody to do is just drag and drop in your own documents, or connect to, you know, Dropbox or Box or, you know, iManage or NetDocs or whatever your file storage system is. And it could be 1 million documents, 1,000 documents, 10 documents, whatever. And it is able to turn it into the same kind of powerful search experience that you get with Parallel Search, but over your own documents. And that's been, you know, really interesting to see that same kind of Parallel Search technology, instead of using for legal research, folks are uploading all of their contracts and are typing in, you know, would we be liable if a terrorist attack disrupted our supply lines? And it says, you know, here's the part of the contract, you know, of our Parallel contracts that answers that question. Or uploading all of the firm's previous briefs and typing in an argument you want to make and see, have we ever made that argument before, even if you use different language. Or uploading all the transcripts from a particular case, or all the discovery documents in a particular case. And you remember somebody saying something about being a little bit too expensive, but, you know, you say like, you know, this thing costs too much, and you find the expert talking about how its price was in, you know, out of whack with the consumer demand or whatever, right? So
interesting. Yeah.
That's where things are really developing for us. And exactly as you said, we're expanding pretty far out of the original mission of just legal research, but taking the same kind of core technologies of, you know, automation to some degree, machine learning, built-in human intelligence, and turning that into products that are a lot more flexible and find even more uses for our growing user base.
Interesting. So you've got, you know, real, because I mean, AI, you know, is one of the, you know, things that people that maybe are outside the tech world think that it's not a real thing, or they read the story or the article recently that, you know, IBM selling off Watson Medical because it didn't work. And so you've got like a real example of how this benefits law firms in a very practical way. You know, just maybe, especially for folks who aren't familiar with how, you know, Casetext would integrate into their actual day-to-day lives practically or logistically. Obviously cloud-based, everything lives in the cloud. You know, when you're talking about the concept of plugging arguments in case law into a brief, for example? Are we talking like word plugin? Like what is that, just for folks who maybe aren't used to those types of features? Like how does it actually, how do I, if I signed up and used it, what does that look like?
So when I get to that in a second, I want to also respond to the kind of AI thing you brought up earlier.
Yeah.
Really
I know I grouped really like two massive topics together.
no, it's totally good.
Yeah.
And I think that the real easy answer on the AI thing is that all the skeptics at the time were 100% right, because the AI got, I think, the idea of AI and natural language processing got a bit ahead of its skis, frankly. They saw where the future was going. They started pretending like the future was in 2016.
Right. Exactly. It's happening.
They were making claims it was. And, to be honest, we have been the biggest skeptics, even though we founded this company looking at this technology, we've been the biggest skeptics of using it, because for years we kept on trying to make a great product based on it. And we have some of the best, PhD level people we've taken from places like Google and Microsoft and Facebook, right? Who are looking at this and they said, the technology is just not customer ready. There's interesting signs of promise. There's things happening in the labs. It's not customer ready. And so there are all these other companies that went out there, including some of the biggest companies in the world, like IBM, making these really bold claims, and it just was not working. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be as a technology company, to make promises you cannot keep. And so for years, we made some advancements. We had some early kind of wins with artificial intelligence and talked about those, but we were very quiet about these kind of bolder claims because we just could not deliver for the customer.
Got it.
I will say, like, after all this disillusionment, and after everybody's like, man, all this stuff is BS. After all that kind of exactly when that's setting in, for the first time ever, the technology is real. Like the state of the art was just there. And it's one of those things where I think the machine learning, artificial intelligence community has to do some repair work, in some ways, to the trust of folks out there, because of folks who came before us took the term, and they were visionaries. They were right. That's the thing. They were totally right about where the technology was going. They were just wrong about it being ready right now. So that's my 2 cents on that.
No, I think that's fair. And I think that's, I don't disagree with that, just from the standpoint of watching this and exploring use. I remember we were exploring the use of Watson as a backend for a product, and just couldn't it just didn't feel right. And we looked at all, like, Amazon's, Google's, all of them, and it just it just wasn't quite there. As it just didn't feel right using it at the time. So it's bound to catch up. So
Watson came to us in, I want to say 2015 or 2016, and said, do you want to use our platform? We were, of course, excited to talk to IBM. Who wouldn't be?
Right. And
so we started using it, and we have about 1 billion pages of case law in our database. And they said, great, so how can we get this 1 billion pages into Watson? And I said, well, in order to get that kind of amount of data in there, we would need a machine the size of, like, the Empire State Building, running 24/7. And it would take 3 seconds to respond to every query if you have just one user. And that was the answer, basically. Like, that's how they got Wikipedia, which is smaller than the law.
Right.
In there for Watson that competed on Jeopardy, and it had only, what they told us, that one client, which is the Watson itself, right? The answer, as opposed to many clients at any given time, and had to respond within 3 or 4 seconds. And that's a totally different world when you're about trying to build a search engine for hundreds of thousands of lawyers.
Right.
So they said, well, what we can do is we can take a portion of a statute and upload it to Watson, and that's what you can do. We're like, what good is that to anybody?
Right. Oh, cool. Yeah, great. Give us we'll give you section A, but you don't get B, which is the exception to A. So you'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
It's like, what is this? So we were, for that reason, just super skeptical, right? We're just like, this is not going at all well.
Right.
We backed out. We did our own R&D that led to things like parallel search later, but we're just totally out on Watson for that reason. Again, it could be actually that Watson today, is not Watson of 2015 and 2016. This stuff changes fast.
Right.
But anyway, so as you asked, how might someone practically use our services in law firm environment? Exactly like you said, everything is cloud-based. We're going to use research, compose, parallel search, or any of our new technologies based on search. You can start from going to casetext.com, compose.law. and either of those places will direct you to exactly where you need to find. Compose is interesting because it is the first time we have built also a Word integration. So you can either use it on the web through a web kind of editor that we've built, and you can navigate through it, find the arguments you want to add, etc. Or you can have an add-on within Microsoft Word, hit the Compose button, and you get all that same power and functionality, but within Microsoft Word, which is a super popular part of Compose. And we're going to really kind of dig into that side of things. We've seen a lot of people not wanting to leave Word,
Right.
In order to get the benefits of Compose, of research, right? And as we're building out parallel search, for example, it's also a piece of that Word add-in. So you write a sentence, for example, in your Word document, you highlight it, hit parallel search, and it will find you a case to support that sentence immediately, right?
That's great. And that is it a plugin where it's like on the right side, or is it going to take you to the browser? Or?
Yeah, it's a plugin on the right side.
Got it.
And you can pull it on a window if you're a two-screen guy or gal.
Yeah.
But as I was when I practiced, but for a lot of people, just keep it right there, right alongside what they're writing.
Got it. Okay, so if you would put yourself into like you don't have to be tech advanced. Like if you put yourself in a category of a lawyer that's like, I know how to use some things, but it's not something this isn't something that should scare them away if they don't feel like they're the most advanced tech, enabled lawyer. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
One of the things that we really aspire to, all the technology behind this stuff is super fancy and difficult. And frankly, I don't understand anymore when my machine learning guys and gals tell me what they're working on. But that's internal, right?
Right.
Our aspiration is that we use this kind of advanced technology, so the person using this stuff never has to even think about it, right? Yep. Did we train it on this database or that database? Is it whatever? None of that is something that we make anybody think about, because that's our job, and there are a lot of companies out there that make people bring their own training sets and data sets and whatever. And
right.
And that's just not the way we operate. It's more like Apple or Google, or it just works, right? Just don't worry about it. There's a lot of technology behind it. We'll make it work.
I'm excited to see this product in beta about the concept of being able to search all your information for facts. That's really exciting, because that's what you're talking about. Like the idea of just being able to say, like, type in, I want to see, did this happen, or what, think about obviously you have, because you're doing this, but I'm just, as I'm catching up, like the amount of, road mapping and case mapping you do from the start of litigation, and finding those facts, and the amount of like associate and paralegal time that would fall into like digging that stuff up. And now like that one person show really gets to compete, on that true solo can really compete on, managing cases like that, without having to worry about having to hire in to handle bigger cases. So that's interesting.
And a lot of, to be transparent, like a lot of what we think about, we have a lot of very large firm clients, and they're great clients, and they really do care about efficiency and making the practice of law better. But a lot of our technology, at the end of the day, it levels a playing field for a lot of the smaller firms, right? You can't throw dozens of associates at writing a brief. Then you are at a disadvantage compared to places like where I worked at Ropes and Gray. If they need to, if there's an emergency and eliminate action, you have 10 people staying up overnight researching each piece. And so that's why we invented Compose, right? We want to put, for the big firms, we want to put every associate in a place where they're working effectively, efficiently, and competently. And for smaller firms, we want to level the playing field. And that is exactly also true of the new search product we're working on right now, right? Which is to say, if you don't have dozens of people crawling through every single page, you just need to ask a question, find an answer, and get out. I think in many ways, and this is true of almost all technology, not just in law, is that at the end of the day, the best technology empowers people, oftentimes who are at a power differential compared to other folks.
Right.
It puts them in a position where, just like the personal computer made it so that anybody could do spreadsheets and run complex mathematical analysis, not just people with supercomputers. We're at a place right now too where we want to make sure that every single person, especially and including solos, of which many thousands of which are our clients already, are put in that position of power to, especially when they're up against the odds and up against some of the toughest, the toughest competitors.
Absolutely. It's going to be really cool is when you aggregate that data and then allow law firms to search on other sets of information. That'll be fun too. I'm assuming that's a few steps
Clearly,
down.
our privacy, and confidentiality concerns, we have to make sure we work through.
Could be, but you can work through it. It's not it's not insurmountable. It could absolutely be done and interesting. So
I do think that's great.
Yeah, that's very cool. So one thing you mentioned earlier was a differentiator of Casetext and your products is cost. That's always a concern when you are thinking about, do you use what is provided by the Bar Association versus, paying for Lexis West Casetext? Like, how do you guys differ from the others on that front?
Well, a few important ways. First, it's just cheaper, right?
Okay.
If you're buying our basic research plan, it's $65 a month. You buy for the year, or $89 a month if you buy on a month-to-month basis. And that's a second way that's different. A lot of these competitor products lock you in to a multi-year term, right? 3+ years. And we're just not like that. If you want to buy on just a month-to-month basis, there are a lot of lawyers who have a ton of legal research they need to do for certain months, and then things slow down, and they don't need to be paying. West or Lexis could easily run you $300 or $400 a month, right? Just for the basic access to, the other big difference between us and them for the research service is we give you everything, all cases, all states, federal, et cetera. A lot of the folks are paying more money at the Westlaw and LexisNexis to just access their state's case law.
Right.
And if there is a great, again, kind of think about that power differential. If there's a great case, if you're in California, there's a great case in Nevada that is, assess this particular issue. You might want to at least know about that case, see the reasoning in that case, but depending on the court rules, cite that case to, help persuade the court that we haven't addressed that in these courts, but this other court has, and you ought to take a look at this, judge, right? You literally don't have access to that if you just have a single state plan, as many West and Lexis do. So we are trying to put every single small firm for a very affordable rate in the same seat, in the same position as folks who have Westlaw and LexisNexis at the biggest firms from a content perspective. And of course, the technology is way more powerful. We're talking about things like parallel search, which is, is just, you can buy actually a loan for $49 a month if you just want the great search technology, even if you want to keep West and Lexis. Or you can add it on to your Casetext subscription. And again, for extremely affordable at $39 a month, right? We're not talking about a lot of money here. And you have that power that literally, West or Lexis is like decade behind in terms of that kind of technology to find the right answer. So we're not just cheaper, we pack a bigger punch.
Got it.
And that's what we hope is the long-term winning strategy in this industry.
Do you find that you're being used alongside the others? I mean, because I know, I think, and I guess, and I haven't worked at a large law firm in a decade plus, but are most firms using multiple research options still, kind of alongside each other? So you've got something that they don't, but they're still paying for everything, even if they could get it all in one place.
Yeah, the dynamics at very large firms and very small firms are totally different, right? At very large firms, you're in exactly that situation where it's like, oh, why not? Why not also get Casetext and get, Unravel was out,
right,
et cetera. And then the question for the firm, it's still very, very, very hard to sell to 50 MLaw law firms and growing, as you might imagine, right? Like they're very sophisticated, intelligent buyers who really need to see value out of the product. But at the end of the day, if they don't feel like they need to cancel their West or Lexis subscription to get the additional value, if you provide something new, unique, different, and valuable, then they're in, right? At smaller law firms, it's a different story. About 7,500 smaller law firm clients, almost every single one of them has chosen to buy Casetext instead of Westlaw or LexisNexis, and so for them, it's a kind of a competitive question. And what we've seen increasingly is that with our newest tools, like parallel search and like Compose, even the smaller law firms that are stuck for the next 3 years in a Westlaw contract are buying into these services
Right.
because they provide a very different kind of value.
Oh yeah, it's a whole different ballgame at that point. So very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, before we wrap up, I want to. Everybody's still still like we're as if like 2021 changed everything and everything went back to normal. But as we're doing this from our respective homes and not showing up at tech show next week or 2 weeks, whenever it is. But so what pandemic stories are fun. You mentioned earlier that you launched Compose right as the world started burning down. What how have you adjusted, and how's Casetext evolved over the past year in light of the current state of things?
So none of this will sound, I think, terribly different or new from a
That's
lot.
okay. Normal is not bad for
Yeah.
people at this point.
Right. I mean, the very first thing is it was interesting when we went into COVID, we were already somewhat of a distributed team. We had folks in Austin, we had folks in DC, and our headquarters were out in San Francisco. We had some folks in Kansas City, some folks even like Costa Rica, right? But the vast majority of folks were our headquarters in San Francisco, and I think we viewed ourselves as a primarily San Francisco-based company. And at the beginning of COVID, we said we're going to go full remote, and indefinitely, even when COVID ends. And the reason we did that was we realized that we were in many ways disserving our remote employees as it was. In many ways, we could have been a better company culture and built a better company culture based on, including all the folks from everywhere from day one if we took a remote first perspective. And it's not easy, right? Frankly, like
Right.
that kind of connection you get at the office, which is still my virtual background, right?
Right.
Even though I'm at my home right now, right? That kind of connection you get by being able to turn to somebody and say, "Hey, this idea, do you want to talk about it? Let's go grab a conference room or whatever." That's tough to replicate. Going out to
Right.
an hour afterwards after work, or you know, um, doing yoga or something with somebody or early in the morning before everybody else gets in. Like that's tough.
Mhm.
That's tough to replicate those kind of bonds. On the other hand, we could have been better from day one for our remote folks in San Diego, Austin, DC, Kansas City, et cetera. And we hope to build the kind of culture where we can get talent from anywhere. And on that point, we had a few folks here, a few folks there. We've taken a fully remote approach to hiring, and it's just an unfair advantage. There are some insanely talented people for a lot of legitimate reasons don't want to be in San Francisco.
Right.
Not now, not before, not after. Um, want to be near family in the middle of Kansas, or they might want to be in New York to clients in New York or what have you. We have a design team that has actually been based on New York before the pandemic, and they're just absolutely fantastic people, and it'd be an absolute loss if we didn't support them well.
Yep.
And so we've now fully embraced that fully remote culture, and the hires since then each one has been absolutely top notch, high caliber, great additions to the team. So that's the biggest change. The other change that's been interesting for us, we went into the pandemic thinking this is going to be bad for the economy. And if it's bad for the economy, it's going to be bad for our ability to continue to fundraise. And so instead of financing the future with venture capital, as we have in the past, we make a lot of money, but in order to grow faster, we used to take venture capital.
Right.
And we're going to stop that, and we're going to plan for profitability. And that's exactly what we did. And that's also
Nice.
tough to kind of shift a company culture from grow to
Right.
costs, make sure that we're going to make more than we're spending. And that's still an adjustment. Ironically, I just read this morning about another company in our space raising $35 million in a Series B. Like it's things are fine with financing, and we may
Right. It's still happening quite a bit.
yeah.
Yeah,
Still, I
exactly.
mean, if anything, it's better now than it was before, for reasons that are hard to explain or understand. But we are, we are just, we adjusted over the last 12 months or so to be a lot more about running a profitable business, and that might flip back again. But that's been
Yeah.
I think it put our company in a much stronger place where we are unstoppable now, right? Unless some terrible mass exodus of customers or the legal profession ceases to exist or whatever, we're profitable. We're near profitable right now. We could be profitable. Should we just rein in a few more costs or make a bit more money? We're very close to there. And that puts us in a place where we're just not going anywhere for a very, very long time. And you just can build from that place of strength.
Right. And you've got a product that isn't dependent. It could be waves. Our second pandemic could hit next summer and courts close again, or they remain closed and people are still filing. I mean, so you've got the research and writing part of it at its core is not going anywhere no matter what, even if, or it becomes more important because you can't go to, or the court is going to perhaps rely more on briefing and shorter Zoom hearings than, the in-person stuff. So yeah, that's real interesting. So that's great. I appreciate your time today. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach out?
You want to talk to me personally? I'm a pretty approachable guy. I respond to all my emails, and I'm Jake.
I heard you will stay on the phone and listen to stories for like hours. I've heard. So
that is actually accurate. Right before, I don't know. Right before this call, I was talking with a delightful customer for probably longer than I should have been.
That happens. It's not a bad thing.
But yeah, I mean, reach out anytime. I'm Jake at casetext.com. You can check us out at casetext.com is our website. And if you want to interested in trying any of our products, sales@casetext.com will put you in touch with an attorney who knows what they're talking about.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
Thank you.